my time tonight, go to school and go to school all the time. My name is Arthur J. Prison. I'm going to give you a short news and a word on tonight. We're going to start with, I talked about this here the other day. Two guys in Texas had died because of the heat. But yesterday they spoke, it was three guys. So it's three of them had died. The construction work. For exhausted, after the governor had banned water breaks. He had just came out with a bill, for they cannot take water breaks unless, after 4 hours. 4 hours. So he had banned the water break for the construction that working outside in the heat. So the House bill had passed, the state legislature and the governor Greg Abbott, prime signed it into law, on June the 14th. So the bill which goes into effect in September. So it's not in effect right now. It goes in effect September. So they strip all the construction workers, their rights from water breaks. Now it said that the heat was like 115 degrees. And that's just real hot. And so the bill is for every 4 hours they can take a water break. But this bill haven't come in effect yet. So we already have 3 people that died because of the heat. They're out there working in the heat. So hours in time to rest in the shade while they're on duty. So construction workers are working in the heat. They out there building. So where the temperature had topped is 115 degrees. What their new bill had passed to script, all their water breaks to 4 hours. So this will go in effect in September. So that's a long time to be in heat, and you can't have water until 4 hours. So but now you have 2. It was 2. But now you got 3 workers hadn't died out there in the heat, lack of water. So and they was very exhausted. Imagine when this new bill come out in September. So being out there working in the heat and you have to wait 4 hours to get something to drink. So this is for all across the nation. You got construction workers, this for the company, you got construction workers working outside in the heat. Please allow them to have access to water. Help have water break for every hour, every 2 hours. For 4 hours is too long if the temperature 95 on up degrees. That's too long. So have access, have them access with water, every hour or every 2 hours. I don't want them to wait, no more than 2 hours. We don't want nobody to die of heat because it have been so hot out there. So I banned the new House bill. Because they're going to effect in September. So I banned the new House bill, so it won't go into effect because 4 hours would be too long for the construction workers to be out there in the heat. For them to wait, to drink water, and we see right now, people are dying. So we had 3 men having died, lack of water. So I request water break be every hour. So we are fighting for freedom. Every time you look around, it's something. So we got construction working out there dying. Because it's so hot. And they're about to go in effect with the water breaks every 4 hours. So I banned the new House bill and I request water break be every hour. So this going on in Texas. So I do have a word on, we in songs. So we're going to be running through songs. So this one here going to be songs 124, 1 through 8. The snare had been broken. Now Israel acknowledged that God had saved them. And when the Egyptians had came to attack them, if it had not been for God on their side, when people attacked them, you know, they would have been swallowed up. So they also is thanking God. You remember back then it was hard for them to thank God, because God had to tell them, it was me that got y'all from out of slavery. But now they acknowledge God and they're telling God thank you. They're telling God, if it had not been for you on our side, we wouldn't have made it. We won't be here today. So I know me or anyone else had been through hard times, and if it had not been for God, on our side, we would never made it through the storm. So the Egyptians would have swallowed them up alive when their anger flared against them. But if God wouldn't have put Pharaoh's whole army under the Red Sea, they wouldn't be here today. So they're giving God thanks. They're giving God thanks. And if God wouldn't have used his power, the flood would have engulfed us. So God used his power. God had put all of them under that Red Sea. They was crying, they was in fear. God had said, you see them right now, you will not see them no more. And so God put them under that Red Sea, and they saw that their enemy no more. So the torment would have swept over them. The regular water, would have swept them away. If they had God, if we don't have God in our life, when we fight our battle, because our Heavenly Father, he mighty in battle. He mighty in battle. We is not mighty in battle. We cannot fight our storm by ourselves. So the Egyptians had came after Israel, but God has swept them into the sea. They came after the Israelites, but God has swept them under the sea. The entire army of Pharaoh, that had followed the Israelites into the sea, not one of them survived. God said, you will not see them no more. And he meant that. They kept on pursuing after the Israelites. God swept them under. Not one of them survived. So praise be the Lord, who had not let us been torn by their teeth. It wouldn't have been for God on their side, they would have torn up with their teeth. So they're thanking God for deliverance, from all Pharaoh army, which they could not, never have been delivered from it if it had not been for the law appeared for them. So it was on their side. Now all the glory, belongs to God, who I will give all praise. So they're doing all that now. But back then, God had to keep on telling them, you got to give me praise. They're telling God, thank you. So we have escaped. They said they had escaped like birds from the flowers of snare. The snare had been broken, and we have escaped. Now God came and rescued them. God, they had cried out to God, and God came and rescued them. God had to snatch them from being a slave. God snatched them from being a slave. God had broke their neck. God broke their neck. Remember, they was in slavery for 430 years, and God came along and broke their neck. And allowed them to escape like birds. How when you break that neck, when the birds is in there and all the birds is scattered out, that's how the Israelites. Remember, I read, we did Bible study from the beginning up to what we at now. When God rescued them and God broke their neck, and remember I had preached to y'all that the Israelite came marching out there. It was millions of them. They marching out there. That's just like the birds. When they break their neck, all them birds just be marching out. It just be a whole bunch of them. And that's how it was with the Israelites. It was just so many, millions of them. So when God came and broke their neck, you had all the Israelites marching out just like birds. So the teeth of the wicked men are like spears and arrows, like swords and knives. But God will not give them up to them either to sink. So when they have sized them, and they got to Pharaoh in his arm. So a bird. A bird is a trap. A bird is a trap in a big net, like I had explained earlier, and it cannot escape. So that's how the Israelites, they was under Pharaoh as slaves, and they could not escape. Until God had came along. So God had broke that net, allow his people to escape like birds. The snare was broken and they had escaped. They had escaped. So throughout the history of Israel, they should have been destroyed by now. And sometimes we like that. When you got God, that's just like David. David just kept on running, enemy kept on running behind him, and you would think he would have been destroyed by now. But God was protecting the Israelites. But God was protecting David. And you would think you'd be destroyed by that. That's just like with Job. God didn't let Job get destroyed by Satan. And that's how God did with David. God was protecting David. He wasn't gonna let nobody destroy him. Because God had a plan for David's life. So by this point, they think the Israelite will be destroyed by that. But the hand of God has saved them. So when you got the hand of God, when you under that umbrella of God, none of them could not touch the Israelite. So every time they had countless, enemies and so many close calls, but God loved and preserved them. Every time. God preserved them. Now with God, there's always a way out, because he is the creator, of all that exists. No problem is beyond his ability to solve. So our life and future is in God's hands. Our life and our future is in God's hands. So our life and future in God's hands, and the maker of heaven and earth. The maker of heaven and earth. So our help is in the Lord. The only one, we have to trust and flee for safety. No one else can save us. Nobody but God. So they say our help is in the Lord, the only one we trust and flee to for shelter. So when you flee from Satan, you're gonna flee right under God's umbrella. Don't go flee to John Doe, Henry Doe. No, you're gonna flee and protect you under God Satan. You don't want to be under no one else. So God will provide a way out. When we seem like it's no way out in our storm, I'm in that storm. When you feel like there's no way out, it always a way out with God. But guess what? God do things in his divine time. We think it's about that time, for us to get it together, for us to go do this and do that. But God do things on his own divine time. So God will provide a way out, and we need only to look forward to him. Now all the Israelites, they went through with God, and they was able to escape like birds. God had broken the snare. God came along and broke that snare. The kind of trap they used to catch tasted birds. In the songs, they were constructed to two wooden frames between which is a net that was stretched. So the hunter lay flat on the ground and with a bird wandering, into the frames that sprung close and trapped the curator in the net. So the law had broken the frame or the trap of the enemy. So God. God know all traps, because he know when someone trying to plot behind you because God sees it all. The law had broken the frame of the traps, and the enemy had set for his people, but allowing his chosen one to escape like free birds. So this is Psalms 124. Also is a good song too. Also a good song, to read every day. So this is the Israelite. They were saying, they was trapped like birds. Being under Pharaoh as a slave. But they said they cried out to God, and they said God came and broke that net that they were sitting in, and they all marched out of there like birds. So we see that God came along after 430 years and broke that net that the Israelite was in, only for them to escape like birds. So this is a good song here. And so we also had talked about the heat in Texas. You got about 3 construction workers had died out there. They had died out there. And so it was like a water. So I banged the new bill that they came out with. The new bill, the water breaks. They have to take water breaks every 4 hours, and I think that is too long. And I also request water break for every hour because the 4 hours is too long. So that's all I have for you tonight. And make sure when y'all just for working, not only just for workers, when you out there, make sure y'all freeze some water at night. Make sure you have water and something to drink when you're out there. These for the construction workers. Construction workers when you're out there, you pretty much when you're in the heat, you have to drink something with a little sugar in it. You can't just do the plain water. You got to have some sugar. Sugar got to get put in your body, because of the heat is draining. So that's all the news and word I have for you tonight. Y'all have a nice and safe, and I see y'all on the next video.